So finally today I will be talking about the justice system in Portugal and how corrupt it is, how it is completely captured by the political interests, especially from the socialists. And I would like to start this talk with a very important case that happened many years ago, and I believe it was even mentioned in foreign media. The case was related with an institution called Casa Pia. This institution had kids there. They would learn some sort of professional trait that would be useful for them when they grow up. It would probably open many doors in terms of jobs with the training that they would get there. I believe they had other types of programs as well, but I don't really know all the details about the things that Casa Pia did. The details I know about are related with the pedophilia scandal with Casa Pia. This pedophilia scandal involved many famous people, like show hosts, TV show hosts, lawyers, even a former ambassador, and also politicians. One of them, he was not directly involved, he was not one of the accused of raping children, but he was involved in this whole process of messing with the justice system so that his buddies from the Socialist Party would not be accused of crimes. And this person is, once again, António Costa. António Costa, he was a socialist, at the time much younger, and he pressured the justice system along with a guy that was eventually the president of Portugal, called Jorge Sampaio, also a socialist. And they pressured the justice system to remove a person from the case. This person was, of course, a socialist called Paulo Pedroso. And António Costa was caught on phone taps talking about the subject and how he was doing things in the backstage so that things would not move forward for Paulo Pedroso, because they didn't want a socialist being involved in this, which meant that the Socialist Party would be dragged with this guy as well. Pretty much like the socialists are now trying to distance themselves from José Sócrates because he was accused of corruption crimes. And even though they always supported him, even when he was committing those crimes, they are now trying to distance themselves from the guy because he's actually accused. But I will talk about that case later on, because they are distancing themselves, but they are also doing all kinds of shady things in the backstage in order to minimize whatever penalty that he's going to get when the case actually goes to trial. They wanted to set free in the sense that he was being accused, and the socialists wanted to make sure that he was not even an accused in this case. And so António Costa, Jorge Sampaio were involved in pressures to the justice system, to the people that were handling this case in the courts, and even in the Attorney General's office, so that the person, this Paulo Pedroso, would not be accused at all, or rather, he was accused, but he would be removed from that list of accused people. And this was so blatant that during the trial, Paulo Pedroso had already been removed from the case due to these pressures, political pressures. And it was so blatant that during the trial, one of the alleged raped children, which was now an adult, when questioned about who raped him, he said that it was Paulo Pedroso. And the judge said that he was forbidden, the witness was forbidden to say that name, because that name was removed from the process, from the accused list. So they cannot talk about Paulo Pedroso, even though the witness says that he was the one that Paulo Pedroso, was the one that raped him. This was absolutely shocking and hilarious at the same time, because the justice system was ignoring the witness, and there were other things that corroborated the fact that Paulo Pedroso was actually involved in this, because everyone, almost all of the victims of rape in Casa Pia, they described Paulo Pedroso as a person with, he had a specific birthmark, I believe, in his ass cheek, and he removed that. He went into surgery to remove that birthmark, and this was proved to be the case when he was accused, and the witnesses were showing or talking about all those details about Paulo Pedroso. He made an operation to remove that, and the operation was quite visible. So this was a clear attempt to try and be removed from the case by using these shady practices and the political pressures. And they succeeded. Paulo Pedroso was removed, even though the witnesses were saying that he was in fact the one that raped them. The case ended many, many years later, and pretty much nobodies were convicted. Yes, there was a TV show host that was convicted. Yes, the ambassador was convicted. Yes, a lawyer was also convicted, but no politicians were even involved in the case. In fact, there was another socialist, involved in this process, but I believe he wasn't even accused because the crimes had expired. They have certain times to pursue these cases, and if this period expires, then the case cannot be pursued anymore. And the crimes that this guy Ferro Rodrigues was or would probably be accused of had already expired, so this didn't result in any kind of accusation. So this was the first time that I was much younger, and this was the first time that I actually realized that something was rotten in the kingdom of Portugal. We are not a kingdom, but you know what I mean. And from that point on, I started noticing certain things that would be very strange. In the meantime, we saw other cases, not really related with politicians, although politicians are eventually always involved in these cases as well, but basically it was a corruption case in football, in the National Football League, and this involved the president, or a whole club, but basically the president of that club, which is one of the biggest. It's FC Porto. The case was called Apito Dourado, which is basically golden whistle, right? The cases of corruption in the Portuguese football were very serious because it involved high-level corruption of referees. And when I'm saying high level, perhaps I should use another word, but basically they were getting money, they were getting hookers, they were getting some sort of compensation, not necessarily in money or not necessarily in hookers, but they were essentially facilitating the results for this club and another club as well. But this was the biggest one involved. The other club was Boa Vista. and they essentially both conspired to corrupt referees and basically make sure that the final result of any game was pretty much already known from the start, like penalties being scored at the last minute or after the legal time has passed already. Very weird things happening on the field where certain goals happen, and they were goals, they passed through the line, but then they are not scored as goal because, of course, it's against the club that was corrupting the referee, so the referee needed to protect that club. And another thing that I noticed, because this case had lots of phone taps, the police was phone tapping pretty much all of these people, and so many of those phone taps were released to the public. And one of them, it was quite amazing for me, because it was then that I saw just how corrupt the justice system is and how corrupt the judges themselves are. It's unbelievable, because in one of the phone taps we found out that a certain player from that club, FC Porto, he was called Deco. He was in a custody battle for his son or daughter with his wife, and it wasn't even FC Porto trying to corrupt the judge. The judge himself contacted FC Porto to know if they were interested in providing him with a ticket to a football match between Porto and I believe it was Manchester United for the Champions League of that year. And if they provided that ticket, a simple football ticket, the judge would award custody of the child to Deco. So basically, he was basing his decision of that case on the receiving of a football ticket.